This is another New Black World Order TV Productions. Chopper. How you doing, Rebecca? How are you?
I'm doing excellent today.
All right, we have Rebecca here with us again for our second interview.
Yes.
What's happening? What's going on, and how's the progress going?
So, campaigning for City Council for Richmond 2nd District. It's been good. It's been interesting because I've been interacting with the spectrum of people that live in this area. So again, that's Jackson, Ward, Carver, the Fan, Scott's Addition, Sherwood Park and Rosedale, over by the baseball stadiums. So I was over there in Sherwood Park the other day. They actually call that place Little Monument because so many black folks were discriminated against on getting housing on Monument Avenue, so they took it over to the north side and have been established there for a minute. Now, interestingly, a lot of these folks support, well, maybe not so surprisingly, but Joe Morrissey and Jack Berry.
Right.
Really.
LeVar Stoney.
Yeah, you know, I haven't seen so much Stoney supporters out there, honestly, especially when it comes to older black folks. But there is this tie and this mentality of Joe Morrissey is the only person who talks to black people, which honestly, he's not the only one.
I mean, like I said before, his legacy is more so, I used to lock them up, then I saw more money in defending them.
Yeah, and it's money, and I wish more people would realize that. So that's been an interesting dynamic on the Carver Jackson Ward side, getting young folks registered to vote, so much voter apathy. I understand it. No one fucking is excited about the president or the mayor.
Right.
You know, but I've been injecting some hope into folks in terms of the city council election, really having to break down what city council even does, which is the fault of Richmond City, which is the fault of public education, that we have people in college who literally don't even understand this stuff.
Right.
That's how it's been.
And it's kind of crazy because, you know, on Jay Leno's show, Saturday Night Live, how they used to go out on the street and ask people just normal questions.
Yeah.
And what we finding out is people really don't understand a lot of things.
Truly, really and truly.
I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's the effects of the computer. I don't know what it is. But it appears that some people are just out of the loop as to who, what, why, where, and when. So, what is really new?
What is really new? That's a good question.
You know, what are some of the things that people have been bringing up to you lately since the last time we talked about your district?
A lot dealing with public housing, actually, and then what is going to happen, because there's talk about not only the consolidation of public housing, consolidation and demolishing of public housing, but then also that conversation gets looped into what's going to happen to the schools and the consolidation of the schools as well. So I was doing a little bit of history about what school consolidation looks like as that relates to public housing, and you look at the patterns that happened in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s about when the schools did consolidate in Richmond, how that was based on racial and income lines more so than anything else. So it's, again, if it goes as planned right now, if the schools that are slated to close, I think that conversation did get shut down though earlier this year, but say that conversation was still open, right? The schools that were slated to be closed still affect predominantly black students, low-income students, and it creates a segregation along racial and class lines, which we have seen before, which is repeating history, you know? So as that relates to public housing, folks are so concerned about, okay, I have a child, I live in public housing, they go to this school, we might not have this school anymore, we might have this home anymore, I need to leave Richmond, I think it's my time to leave Richmond. This is what I'm hearing from folks, and so it's hard to...
Well, you know, Jack Berry want to create just urban professionals.
Urban professionals, yes. Yes.
That
what does urban professionals really mean?
I don't know what that means.
It means white folks, probably. Okay, I can't just say white folks.
No, because they're all colors that are urban professionals.
It means folks.
People are out of touch with poor people sometimes.
Yeah,
that's what it sounds like.
That's true. That's true. So it means people who have gone to college, who haven't racked up all the debt, as we talked about last time, all the debt that is attached to a college education. So it's folks whose parents are already a little bit wealthy, or folks who got scholarships, or folks who just been privileged enough to not have to go into the massive debt that college produces. Jack Berry and a lot of other folks running for office want those folks to come into the city. Which would
also bring an increase of salaries in the city.
Yeah,
which would affect real estate, which would in turn raise the rents up in the city.
Yes. yes,
and the poor people would have to leave.
Exactly, exactly. So something I want to explore when elected to city council is rent caps. Really just saying, like, look, you can't charge no more than this.
Right, because as we see it going on in New York, it's regentrification at its best.
Exactly, exactly. And it's really scary, honestly, because the push out is going to be massive. And then I don't think politicians understand that a lot of culture is created, not always through the struggle, but a lot of culture that Richmond has and Richmond celebrates is the culture that poor people have established here. It's the culture that people, you know, in terms of the art scene, the poetry scene and all that, that's people talking about their real lives.
Right,
you know?
right.
So,
Second Street Festival was, all of that.
Exactly. So when that culture gets when the people get pushed out, that culture gets pushed out, and then Richmond becomes just like the West End.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those people that are going to be pushed out of public housing, they probably will get pushed out of public housings before that city council comply with 1968 HUD Act and make those people some economic powerhouses by actually complying.
Yeah.
So again, if you are elected, I'm going to ask you again, what's going to be different with you about the HUD Act 1968 Section 3?
So, one, seeing people who have already been affected by this in a negative way, so folks who haven't gotten contracts, folks who have not been able to, as the city says, interact with the city properly, giving those folks, I hate to put it like this, but it's a second chance. It's a second chance that should never been a second chance.
It should have been the first chance.
It should have been the first chance.
Right.
But reevaluating who got left out and finding those folks, really intentionally reaching out to those people to be like, all right, this is what we have established now, you know. So short of doing that, because that is going to be a really hard job to do, no lie.
Right, because if they get rid of public housing, then you actually get rid of the reason why the Section 3 law was even put in place.
Yeah, and then there's this talk about one-to-one replacement and people going to get these housing vouchers and all that. I don't think that's very legitimate because landlords can do housing discrimination on all kinds of matters. I got friends with just ethnic-sounding last names who have housing discrimination, much less someone who comes from one of the courts in Richmond who has this housing voucher trying to live in slowly and rapidly gentrifying Jackson Ward.
Yeah.
So you should have seen the people who bought my last building. They were scared of me. And I'm just like, yeah.
Really?
So it's this interesting dynamic and harmful dynamic of their public housing is slowly but surely going to be demolished in Richmond.
Exactly.
Folks won't have places to go. There's the talk about, oh, we're just going to do the one-to-one, but I don't think that's very sincere. So what sets me apart as a city council person in this process is slowing the demolition of public housing so we can actually figure out what happens to folks. Are we going to rebuild that area? All the construction that's going to be happening in Scott's Addition, that new spot on Lee and Belvedere.
Okay, yeah.
Truly mixed income housing and what that actually looks like. Richmond got a lot of talk about mixed income housing. Doesn't actually manifest. It takes the city government to actually make that a thing, make the rental units affordable for some folks, more high-end for other folks. It also takes folks with money being willing to live with people in a mixed income housing environment.
Right, so, because if they come with that condescending attitude, it will begin to take shape of policy.
Exactly, which is going to further segregation. You know, if folks ain't willing to live in community with people actually, then we don't have no community. So I'm a community organizer. I am used to sitting down and talking with folks and seeing what the needs are and mobilizing people from there. If not, just sitting down doing the political education with the homies, you know, like this is what this looks like. This is, and especially as it pertains to college students who, let's say there's some folks at VCU and Virginia Union who don't have a lot of debt but want to just leave the hell out of Richmond because Richmond doesn't have the opportunities, right? How to create those opportunities for these young folks who are quite brilliant, who are here, but Richmond's not supporting them. Those are the folks who would be perfect for mixed income housing. Right.
And another thing I wanted to talk about was since there is no real strong job creation, I noticed that in New York they allow a lot of vendors out to create jobs. But I noticed in Richmond they fight against that. Right? They are eliminating the vendors off of Broad Street. But if you don't have a job for me, why would you get in my way of creating a job?
Exactly.
So what do you speak to that situation?
So I would love to see more vendors. I think that's a perfect idea because the overhead is low. If you just have a food truck or what have you, or if you're just selling your craft, you know.
Right.
And so many other cities do this. In Buenos Aires, Argentina, they have a 40-block open-air market every single Sunday when the weather is nice. Anyone could come out there and sell their goods. You got to pay a little bit of rent to the city to do that.
Right.
But what does that attract? It attracts people. It attracts artists. It attracts musicians. It attracts dancers. And that is that culture piece we're talking about too.
Right.
So that's going to take a little work before we get to that whole what they were trying to do with 6th Street Marketplace.
Right.
That was that ideal. But in terms of just folks setting up and having spaces to vend, whatever crafts, whatever arts that they do, and whatever food, I'm thinking Monroe Park is a fantastic spot to really start to generate that for real. Because let's see, we got all these VCU kids, you know, Monroe Park, people just walk through it. No one hangs out there except folks without homes and folks who are in day treatment who just need somewhere to go during the day.
Exactly.
So, short of those folks who are slowly being displaced right now because they closed in the park for 18 months.
Right. Well, that's planned.
Yeah, that's planned. That's happening.
Right.
And a lot of VCU students didn't even know about that.
And it's going to cause those people to collect somewhere else.
Yes, exactly.
That's what it's going to do. The same thing they did with, I think it'll cause the same migration or the thing that caused the people to hang on Broad. You know, some of the heroin addicts, the prescription drug addicts that hang on Broad Street, they cluttered there because of the no trespassing laws in the project.
Yeah.
So when they were in the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So when they got the no trespassing laws, some of them were lawfully given and some of them, majority of them were unlawfully given.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So those people collected on Broad Street. Then they switched the buses off of Broad Street, thinking that those people would follow the buses. They're still there.
Yeah.
That didn't work.
With this increase, it's going to have more folks on Broad Street, perhaps, which will probably increase policing on Broad Street.
Right, because on 3rd Street, they're putting a VCU precinct right there. Right.
That
Because
doesn't feel right.
the VCU police anticipate what I just said. That somehow City Council don't see.
So there's a lot that's missing. I think the folks in City Council right now don't look at this as a whole big picture situation, which is easier said than done, absolutely, but it really takes City Council people who understand the history and the shifting dynamics of the city, you know? So that being, again, the culture of the city, who is actually here and actually doing the work, versus an idealized version of what the city could be and building toward that. So going back to 6th Street Marketplace, that was supposed to be this big fair where everyone could come, yada yada. The city planned for that as if there's a lot of really wealthy people in the city who are going to continue to go there, as there are a lot of artists in the city who are already supported. They did not think that through in terms of, again, who is actually here, what's the human capital, how can we work with people who are marginalized, you know?
I mean, are they really doing any thinking over there anyway?
Pardon?
Are they really doing any thinking over there?
Are they doing any thinking? I think they think themselves in circles.
Right. Right. So, okay, now, let's make this a little difficult.
Okay.
How important you think it is to mandate a candidate rather than
elect one?
You know, rather than take empty promises, verbal promises.
Mandate a candidate. Say a little bit more about
what
that.
I mean by if I sign a contract with a particular group of voters, right? Because you know they give us verbal promises that they'll do this and they'll do that, right? But I noticed that some groups mandate their elected officials to do something for them, or they vow to get them out.
Oh,
you understand what I'm saying? Like give a candidate an ultimatum.
Yeah.
You know, we want you to do this, that, and the third for us, and if you don't, we promise you, you won't come back.
So I am into that in the terms of it being a consensual agreement on both sides, right?
Right.
Because if you have a group that's holding a candidate accountable for filling every single pothole in the city in a certain amount of time, this is just an example.
Right, because you got to give people,
I mean, that's like, quite frankly, a little bit unrealistic. You know, so you have to come into an agreement that's reasonable, that's realistic, but then hold your politicians, your city council, your school board people accountable.
Exactly.
We have so little accountability. The same thing I was saying for social workers, same applies for people who work in City Hall. They do things in shadow so much, and they do things in a way that it's really confusing to a lot of common folk. You know, even like we were saying, these college kids don't know how the government works, you know?
Right.
So all this happens under secret or under shadows, and it's not a transparent process, right? So there's that, and then there's what you're proposing about this mandate to actually hold...
Right, because the mayor told us, as he said that we're moving the buses off of Broad Street because of the bike race.
Yeah, and the bike race has been over for about a year now.
And they lost money on the bike race.
Lost so much money on the bike race.
But his verbal promise was not kept.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm telling my people in my community is that you have to get mandates from these people.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Other than that, it's word of mouth, and word of mouth don't stand in court.
Yeah, I can see a mandate being something that a city council person is responsible for teaching folks how to do and then implementing.
I was thinking that because last time you made a good point. You was like, somebody taught them how to do this.
Yeah.
And so therefore civics needs to be taught.
Yeah.
And I'm already in the projects teaching. If you go on my channel and see, you'll see me teaching the kids, right? And so I got the chalkboard, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to start teaching civics.
Word.
Right? That way, because those 4 little girls that was killed in the Martin Luther King Jr. Church, they were learning civics in that basement.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that. Right? So you got to know how to vote.
Yeah.
When to vote.
Yeah.
The who, what, why, where, and when.
Yeah.
Civics got to be taught.
Absolutely.
Who's teaching it? I know I didn't learn it coming up.
I didn't learn it quite well.
Right.
I'm running for
so
office.
we went through trial and error.
You know, yeah.
They left us to fend for ourselves.
Truly.
Right?
Truly.
And we want to reverse that.
Yeah, and I think that it really needs to start from, if people see their elected officials being the ones taking that measure to go out to do that teaching, to do that empowerment, then things are going to begin to change. That's the hope anyway. I can't predict the future, but I'm thinking if I had someone who worked for the city or some kind of big institution that's not just a teacher, because obviously they ain't do good enough, you know, to really sit down, come to my playing ground, you know, and be like, this is how it works and this is how you can hold me accountable, that would be powerful.
Because they do it, right? Whenever they, you know, the nation building that America took part in the Middle East, etc., etc., they sent expert economists to those countries to teach those people how to set up an economy. But nobody, everybody that comes to the black community, those different organizations, they may tell us this, but nobody teach us and teach us exactly what you said last time.
Yeah.
Nobody teach them how to set up the license, the contract license, how to get the bids, right?
It's usually on some savior stuff like, oh, I'm just gonna come and do this for you, so you'll be good for like a few months.
And they wind up extracting all of it through administrative costs. That's what we want to get around, right? So Rebecca Keel is a fresh, new, vibrant voice out of here, right? And some of the things she said, just go ahead, sign your name in the air and mandate it.
Rebecca Keel.
Did you see that, y'all?
Hold me accountable,
Hold her accountable. And I believe that if y'all hold her accountable, she'll meet you exactly where her statements were. This has been another New Black World Order TV Productions. Chopper. Thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Y'all check this sister out. You know, she's been educated and qualified in certain fields of study that will benefit us in City Council.
Absolutely.
Thank you.